application for planning permission at 44 Biggar Road, Edinburgh. This was requested by Councillor Booth, and I will hand over to planning officers to present.
Can you see the presentation, committee?
Yes, we can. Many thanks.
Right, I'll try and make this as short as possible. Good afternoon. This is an application. This is a Section 42 application to amend Condition 7 of Planning Permission 12000758 FUL to allow the sale of convenience goods from 248 square metres gross sales floor area at the site. This is the aerial view of the site, showing the residential areas to the north, west and east, and the city bypass to the south. This is the existing building facing onto Biggar Road with car and cycle parking facilities. The building accommodates retail, restaurant and office space. The application relates to the ground floor of the building. This is a further view of the building showing the car parking and the access to the site from Biggar Road. The key considerations are the retail implications of the application and the transport implications of the application. This is location plan for the site, showing the size of the site and its proximity to existing housing and the closeness to the city bypass and to the Lothian-Burn connection. The ground floor of the building is an existing retail unit. The proposal is to allow the sale of convenience goods from 248 square metres floor space. The retail unit of this size is considered to be a small-scale retail neighbourhood development, not likely to have an adverse effect on the vitality and viability of an existing centre. The site is on an accessible location on a main road leading into the city, within walking distance of Swanston and Swinton residential areas. There's footpath links from Winton Terrace and Winton Park to Biggar Road, and the location is easily accessible by foot or by cycle. There's an existing bus stop outside the building and on both sides of Biggar Road, which can reduce the length and overall number of shopping trips made by car. There's housing close by, which would allow local people to be quite likely to use the unit, selling convenience goods, contributing to a 20-minute neighbourhood. No changes are proposed to the access arrangements to the site. There's existing off-street car parking to the side of the building to accommodate the uses of the building. There's cycle parking to the front of the building. In conclusion, the proposal complies with the relevant policies contained within National Planning Framework 4 and Policy RET 6 of the Edinburgh Local Development Plan and associated guidance. It's recommended that planning permission is granted subject to the conditions stated in the report. These points are fully addressed in the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And Councillor Booth.
Thanks, Commissioner. So could you just clarify, you say that the site is easily accessible by foot and by bicycle. Have you got a plan that includes, cycle routes in the area? I know this area slightly, and my impression of the area is that it's a very busy road, and actually most people would not want to walk or cycle to this, but perhaps I've misunderstood it. Have you got a plan that shows the cycle and pedestrian routes around the site?
No, unfortunately, I don't have a plan available, no. Other than the location plan, which would just show, obviously, the road network and the pavements.
There any other questions from committee? Officers are just looking to see whether there is any other detailed plan of the area. Councillor Mowat.
Yeah, Convener, when I read that in the report, and I have to say that I didn't go and do a city cycle map search, my assumption was the site that actually there's a lot of housing that side of the very busy road up to it where people could walk in and would then actually be able to get facilities without having to cross the busy road or to go further up past the crossroads that I've forgotten the name of, but it's a famous crossroads, but it's not my part of the city. But that was sort of my understanding of what was being said in the report, because there isn't a lot of housing and quite a lot of new housing that's been built, sort of, if that's the bottom of the corner, sort of going up and down.
Thanks very much. So I had a quick look on the council's quiet routes map, and there are no dedicated quiet routes for cycling within the vicinity of the application site. However, I think the point that Councillor Mowat just made was in relation to the kind of walkability and the existing housing around about it, which would probably utilise this by foot or by cycling if they felt so inclined to cycle along the busy road. But yeah, in other words, there's just nothing really shown as part of a off-road cycle network to the site.
Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, I'm just looking on Google Maps aerial view, and there is the pedestrian route from Winton Park, but it just comes up to the main pavement and there's no crossing. So I'm kind of knowing the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there any scope to get something like a section 75 to pay for pedestrian crossing? Because I think Councillor Mowat's right, there's a lot of housing round about there, but it would be difficult to get there on foot from the ones on the east side of the Biggar Road. I think Swanson Drive, it'd be useful for Swanson Drive and the surrounding streets. But Leslie, what do you think? Can we get a section 75 for crossing?
It's not been identified as an action, and it's not been identified in a transport statement or by our roads authority that is a requirement. So I think we might be teetering on the unreasonable in terms of the proportionate response, given the fact that there's an existing retail unit currently on the site. So I would probably say no.
Councillor Beale.
So I could make the point, and we'd probably justify this on Google Maps. I think there's no housing on the opposite side of the road from where this unit is. It's further up at the crossroads, and there's a crossing at the crossroads. So I don't see any benefit of having a pedestrian. No one's actually going to come down there. There's no need to come down there. Whereas a lot of the housing, I believe, again, we check into Google Maps, is behind the proposed development. Thanks.
Sorry.
Councillor Beale. Oh.
Can I just clarify what I think it was in response to what I was saying? There is actually a path that I'm showing Councillor Beale from Winton Park directly at that end of it. Thank you, Convener.
Councillor Beale.
Yeah, my question, I'm not 100% convinced that the transport issue has been resolved, but my question was about the other element of it, the paragraph A of RET 6. The proposal will address a quantitative or qualitative deficiency, or will meet the needs of an expanding residential or working population within its catchment area. Can you just clarify how that element of RET 6 has been met?
Sorry, Councillor, could you remind me of your question? Is it RET 6?
RET 6, and then in particular paragraph A about the quantitative or qualitative deficiency that this proposal will meet. Can you just clarify how that element of RET 6 has been met in this application? Is it felt?
There has been an analysis that was submitted by the applicant, but given the size of the unit they're proposing, we don't normally ask for these details. It's a small scale, it's an existing retail unit, and what they're proposing is quite a small floor area that we don't normally ask for additional details, but we do have details within the application that does explain that it would meet the needs because of what's going to be selling.
Just to clarify, so what's being proposed is 248 square metres of the convenience floor space. There will still be an element on the lower, like, basement level for the existing use, which is the sale of outdoor equipment, as well as retaining, my understanding is, the cafe, which is currently on the first floor level. So RET 6 talks about development for out-of-centre proposals. So there is that kind of what's set out here, but Jennifer's right in saying that if we were to read the supporting text, it talks about the benefits in providing small-scale convenience stores of up to 250 square metres of gross floor space. So obviously this is falling just below the 250 square metres, and it's talking about how these can complement the role of identified centres. So what we've said is that, you know, there is, this will complement what is the existing, because at the minute, if you're living on Biggar Road, the closest place to go for something to make milk or bread is probably the Hunter's Tryst Morrison's, which you would then take a car to. So I think actually what this is saying is it'll complement the existing provision, as well as that, in terms of not really taking too much of a quantitative look at this floor space. There are a number of, quite considerable number of support comments from the local area talking about how this is actually going to be something that would be really beneficial to them. So I think in absence of, we have taken information from the applicants, but in the absence of anything that's really kind of quantitative, we would take a kind of rounder view in terms of what the local residents are also saying for this is addressing a deficiency.
Councillor Booth.
Thanks, Camilla. Thanks. I think that partly addresses my question. My understanding, though, is that there was a previous application for more than 248 square metres, which was refused, and therefore they've reduced it to within the threshold. And of course, the other element of that paragraph talks about, small-scale convenience stores up to 250 square metres in locations easily accessible or on foot or by bicycle. And I'm really not. I mean, I think the first part of the round of questions, I'm really not convinced that this complies with that element of it either. I mean, it clearly is less than 250 square metres, but I'm not convinced that it complies with accessible on foot or by bicycle.
I mean, it is an accessible location. So if you were living in the local area, you could walk to it. I mean, it's pavements, it's accessible. As well as that, I mean, if I was being pedantic about it, it does say by foot or bicycle, but so it is accessible by foot. You could walk there if you live in the local area. If you wanted to cycle to it, you probably could. It's not the nicest environment to cycle to, notwithstanding there is provision for walking there within the local area. As Councillor Beale pointed out, most of the housing is on that side of the road, probably limiting the amount of crossings required. So I think we've just assessed it as being acceptable in that context.
Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, I'm just looking again at Google Maps, and there is a quick stop at the crossroads of Oxgangs Road and Biggar Road. So it looks like it's a convenience store, and it still looks like it's still open next to where the bank used to be, open 8 a.m. to 10 p.m, chilled beers, wines, spirits. It even has Magnum Ice lollies on the window. So what more could you want? So there is retail in the area. And that's much better near to the crossing and so on. So my question is, are you aware of that, or is that news to you, Leslie?
Well, actually, I was aware of that. I was aware that there is an existing small grocers at that crossroads, yes, which can be accessed, at the traffic lights. Whereas, obviously, with this particular application, at the far end of Biggar Road, you would have to cross a busy road. I accept that, yes. But it is quite, it is accessible for the houses, for example, at Swanston, not to have to cross a busy road.
Okay, have we exhausted questions? Wow, interesting. I would say on balance, the applicants have met the brief. I know it's quite a low bar on this one. They have changed their application, they've reduced their size, and as we have heard from officers, you can actually access the place by foot. You might take your life into your own hands accessing it by bicycle, but you can access it by foot. So technically, they have met the brief. I don't think there is an issue with that. So I am in favour of the fact that we approve the officer's recommendations. Councillor Booth.
Sorry, Convener. I'll keep this brief because I might not get the seconder. I mean, I would argue that they haven't. It's not accessible by foot or by bicycle. I appreciate people on the west side of Biggar Road could walk to it. But I think we've heard, it's a very, very busy road and you wouldn't really want to walk from the east side of Biggar Road to this. You certainly wouldn't want to cycle. I think you're quite right. You would take your life in your hands. So I don't think it does comply with RET 6. So I would move refusal on the grounds that the application is contrary to policy RET 6 of the LDP.
Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, I'd be happy to support that because I see the danger here is this new enterprise will put out the existing shop, which is actually much more accessible to the people on the east side. So the people on the east side will then drive to the new shop, which is contrary to our policies. So it may seem pedantic, but I think there's grounds to refuse this. It's against our 20-minute neighbourhood idea of walking and using accessible transport to get to places. Thank you.
Councillor Mowat.
I just wondered if you wanted a seconder, Convener.
I was just about to get to that.
Sorry. We're all keen to preempt things and move things on. I would like to second this because actually I think that I can remember doing the original planning for putting this unit in as a ski sort centre, and it hasn't quite succeeded at the capacity for that. Given the amount of increase in housing there, I think having a small local supermarket that people can walk to from a lot of that new housing is actually really valuable because it takes cars off the road. That road has got busier, and if people are doing a smaller shop, they may well choose to do that there. And frankly, beer, wines, spirits and Magnum ice lollies are not a healthy and complete diet. And you might need a bit more. They may sell other things as well. Sorry if I've taken quick stop. But you may need other things as well. And I think there is, the increase in housing in that area has been quite significant. So sort of small shops, actually, I think supports small local retail. I think it is to be supported. So I will move this because I think this meets our criteria. We don't have significant grounds to refuse it, and I think it will be a bonus to the area.
Thanks, Convener. I want to make a contribution. So I'm going to be supporting the motion as set out by yourself, largely because I feel a little bit concerned as a small business owner myself that there's a chance that one of the reason why the applicant is doing this is just for survival, because it's a difficult time for businesses. And this mountain sports shop, which I've used in the past, because I'm an outdoorsy person myself, you may like to know, is a really valuable contribution to the community, to Edinburgh, right on the foot of the ski slopes there. And I'd be, while I hear what Councillor Gardner's saying about the potential conflict with the other shop across the road, I think it's important that we take measures to make sure that these small businesses which make a contribution to our outdoors economy are also protected.
Okay, just moving on to the vote then. Excuse me, we have a motion moved by Councillor Osler, seconded by Councillor Mowat, which is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions and reasons set out in the report. And an amendment moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor Gardner, which is to refuse planning permission on the grounds that it's contrary to LDP policy RET 6. Could I first take those for the amendment to refuse, please? That's 3. Thank you. And for the motion, please. That's 8. The motion is carried.